So Tim Pool is very upset with NewsGuard, and so are we. Let's see what Tim has to say about NewsGuard, the scammers.
I use something called NewsGuard. Why? Well, the logic is fairly obvious. NewsGuard rates websites with trust, determining whether or not you can believe what the news outlet says. I started using NewsGuard because it's their bias metric. Apparently, they've received funding from the government, and now we're trying to determine who is telling the truth and who is not.
Not only do they receive funding from the government, they received $749,000. None of us still know what was done with that money, Tim.
NewsGuard has lied about Timcast and misrepresented what we do. Anybody who's basically anti-establishment, critical of vaccines, critical of Democrats is often labeled dangerous fake news, and thus there is a lawsuit from Consortium News against NewsGuard. When NewsGuard themselves claimed that Timcast.com published fake news, to which I responded with, here are two NewsGuard certified sources asserting it's true. Have a nice day.
Let me tell you why this matters. Probably most of you are saying to yourselves, who cares about NewsGuard and their rating? Who cares if they're getting a perfect score to CNN and the New York Times and an abysmal score to Tim Pool or to PragerU or to the Daily Wire or to the Federalist? You're probably wondering, why do we even care? Well, I'll tell you why we care. They're going after our contractors, our vendors, they're going after banks, they're going after our websites. They're trying to take us down, all in the name that they are guarding the news. They're guarding the audience from hearing fake misinformation. But really what they're doing is they're guarding themselves and their clients from the rest of us who want to share the truth about what is going on.
Boy, they didn't like that one. They went, oopsie daisy. Because if I can't trust your certifications, it destroys your entire narrative, doesn't it? Instead of merely suggesting rebuttals to untrustworthy information, as many other existing anti-misinformation groups do, NewsGuard has built a business model out of broad labels that classify entire news sites as safe or untrustworthy, using an individual grading system producing what it calls nutrition labels. Recently, NewsGuard downgraded Timcast from 82.5%, I believe it was, to 69.5% because they claimed they reached out for some corrections and we didn't respond. That is not true. As far as I can tell, and according to my staff, they never did.
They don't care about the responses. I have an entire document here going back and forth with NewsGuard where we responded to them with the truth, and they don't care. They'll just keep asking you more and more questions. We got 57 out of 100. Meanwhile, the New York Times, CNN, they get a perfect nutrition score, 100%. So no matter how many times we'll go back and forth with NewsGuard, they don't care about the truth. They only care about labeling and taking down media companies that don't share what they want to have shared. Don't waste your time responding to them. They're a complete scam.
A dirty game they play. When NewsGuard initially rated Timcast.com, their nutrition label, they call it, was so laden with insane errors, they had to issue multiple corrections and apologies in the span of a couple days. And to this day, their statements about me still have many inaccuracies, and they don't care and they won't correct it.
And they also won't be transparent about what they're doing. So while the NewsGuard scammers are attacking media companies that they can't control, we have some questions for you at NewsGuard, and we know that the public wants to join us with these questions. So here are my questions for NewsGuard. Dear John, we at PragerU also have some questions for you as we have opened an official investigation on behalf of America's public. We want to understand the funding and incentive behind NewsGuard. Please provide us with answers on the following questions. What is NewsGuard's relationship with Publicis, the PR company for the pharma companies? What instructions have you received from them? Do pharmaceutical companies you work with instruct you to provide guidance to target media organizations that talk about the vaccines? What instructions has NewsGuard received from the Department of Defense? And what has it done with the $749,000 that you have accepted from the U.S. government? This is our money, and we want to know what was done with it. In the wake of the Twitter files and the discovery of relations of Missouri versus Biden, what is your comment about government collusion with tech companies? What instructions, directive, suggestions, or advice has NewsGuard received from the NIH, the World Economic Forum, the CDC, World Health Organization, the U.S. Institute of Medicine, or the White House? We deserve to know. Please name your directors, your board members, your contributors, and all of those who are affiliated with any of the organizations I just mentioned. Now, critics say that NewsGuard is biased in its ratings against new media and conservative medias. Can you please explain to me why CNN and the New York Times have an absolute 100% perfect score, even though they repeatedly publish lies and misinformation? Please disclose how much funding you have received from the unions, the American Federation of Teachers, which you have a partnership with. What is the nature of the relationship? What promises have NewsGuard made to the AFT and the teachers' unions? What is your comment about Elon Musk's assertion that NewsGuard is a scam, which I happen to agree? And what are your plans to retaliate against X? Now, NewsGuard has been sending me threatening letters demanding that I disclose every single one of the PragerU staff members that has been working on our content. And so we deserve to ask the same questions. I'd like to know, what are the names and credentials of each and every single person involved in fact-checking for the news rating services? Please include their past employment, their college degrees, and their professional associations, including the relationships with all of the organizations that you have been protecting. And if you can honestly, at NewsGuard, respond to all of those questions, we might actually answer your questions too. Yours truly, the public. And I want to invite all of you who deserve to know the truth to join me in this effort. What questions do you have for NewsGuard? What demands do you have against these internet bullies? Sign our petition at PragerU.com and also join me in asking important questions. Let's get all of you out there on the internet finding out the information behind this corrupt scam organization that is trying to take our First Amendment down. Go to PragerU.com right now and join me in this effort.